Good morning, good morning. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Well, today we are going to do a fun technique. So it's Technique Tuesday. I love to show you how to do new fun things with our products. So the stamps and dies that I'm going to be sharing with you today are from the Frosted Forest bundle. This is one of our online exclusives. It's so beautiful. We've got all the different trees and the dies that cut them out, some extra dies, and some great sentiments. You can use these, of course, for seasonal cards. You can use them for sympathy cards. There's a great birthday sentiment and thank you, thinking of you. It's a really versatile set and can create lots of fun. So today we're going to do some watercoloring techniques in a new fun way. So I have some watercolor paper here that I've already pre-cut, and I'm going to take this die here and I'm going to show you how we can watercolor using our dies to create a really fun look. Good morning, Ty. So let me bring in my water. So this is just a little tub of some water. I've got some ink refills in Pool Party, Old Olive, and Mossy Meadow. I've got a little watercolor tray. You can get these at Dollar Tree, I think is where I got mine. Amazon, anywhere. It's just a little small one. I like it because it is small. I've got a little bit of washi tape, and I've got one of my Stampin' Up! Water painters. So I love these because you can fill them with water, which helps your watercoloring, and then it's got that brush end. So love these. And so here is what we are going to do. So I'm going to take my die and wait until you see what this fun creates. So we're going to stamp and watercolor today for this technique. So all I'm doing is taking my die, I'm putting it so that the flat side is up, where we would die cut would be down. So just like as if we were die cutting on our watercolor paper. So I love our fluid watercolor paper. We sell that in my online store, and it is great because it doesn't, because it's watercolor paper, you can add a lot of water and it doesn't change the paper or warp it or anything like that. If you try to watercolor on regular paper, sometimes you get, balling up, or it can create a hole in the paper, and we don't want that, right? So this is the watercolor paper, and all I've done is taken some washi tape and stuck my die down so it stays in place. So now I'm just going to take my water painter and I'm just going to fill this in with some water. So that's all I'm doing first, is just giving this a little kind of water coat, and I'm just using that die as a guide as to where I'm putting that. Now I'm going to take some of my ink refills here, and you only need one dot. So little goes a long way with these. So we've got our Pool Party, we've got our Old Olive, just a dot of each. You can re-ink your stamp pads with these, but they also are great for crafting and doing some other fun projects like this one. So all I've done is put one drop of each of those ink refills in there. Now I'm going to take my water painter, and there's a little button here. It's not really a button, but it says push. And so I'm just going to push, and I'm going to add a bunch of water to each of these little wells. That's why I like doing this technique in the watercolor tray versus, like, you could also put these on top of a acrylic block or something. But because these have little wells, it kind of helps to let me add a bunch of water to these, right? Okay, so I'm just mixing this and adding that water. And now I'm going to take where I already laid that water foundation, and I am just going to lightly go in, all following along with my die. Guess we would call this die watercoloring. That's my Going to be my Tracy term for this. Dye watercoloring. So all we're doing is kind of laying that foundation in the dye. If your dye gets a little bit of water on it or a little bit of ink, it's real easy to just wipe that right off. Easy peasy. Okay, so we've laid that down. Now we're going to go into our next color, our Old Olive, and kind of in the middle here, we're just going to add some of that color. Get a little more if you want it a little darker, but we're just going to kind of blend that in, just kind of following along with our dye here. And it's watercolor, remember, so it's not supposed to be perfect by any means. It's supposed to look watercolored, right? So I'm just adding some water here to kind of thin this out. That's why you really only need one drop. Okay, now I'm going to take this Mossy Meadow and we're going to go over here to the right. Wait till you see what this finishes as. We got a couple more steps, so stay with me. But this is such a fun technique in adding color in a different way to use. You know, I love finding different ways we can use our same tools, right? Gives us even more crafting options. Okay, and you can go back with any of the other previous colors if you feel like, oh, it needs a little bit more. You can kind of pat if you want to give a little bit of texture to any of this. You can kind of give it a little patting. See how it adds just a tad of texture. Okay, and then you're going to let this dry. So we have plenty in here. I can probably do a whole bunch more when we're done, right? Lots of options. Good morning, Stephanie. Okay, so I'm gonna put this to the side. We would let this dry. You could also take your heat tool if you wanted to have this dry quicker, but I'm just gonna let that dry kind of naturally. And so what happens is when that dries, it creates this beautiful kind of background, right? And it's beautiful just like that. Let me move my water so I don't spill it. And I want to show you the next step of this. So once this is dry, and you can see every option is, every time you do this, it's going to come out a little bit different, right? Because you might add more colors in one spot, less colors in another. You might change up your colors. Good morning, Gwendolyn. Okay, so for step 2 of this, so it's all dry. This is a dried one. I'm going to bring in a Mossy Meadow ink pad. And this is the stamp from that stamp set. So the stamp, you would normally stamp this and use that die to cut out that image. And you still can after we're done. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take this detailed part of the stamp. So let me just make sure we get it all inked up. And sometimes on these bigger stamps, it's easier to just ink upside down. So we'll just make sure we get all our ink on there. Then we're gonna take our stamp, and because they are photopolymer and clear, we can see right where to line this up. We're gonna stamp that down. Because it's watercolor paper, it's a little bit textured, so you want to make sure that you really stamp down, press in all the areas, kind of let it sit for a second like I am before you pick it up so that we get a good inked impression. And then look at what we have created. So now we've got all that detail with our stamp and our beautiful watercoloring behind it. Isn't that fun? And if you line it up and there's like, oh, a little bit that you think you wish you would have colored in, you can always go back and fill in anything that maybe needs a little more color. Just like that. See, even over here, if you wanted to add just a little bit, you could do that. But isn't that beautiful? I love how this creates some fun, right? It's a totally new option. So I wanted to show you one that I die cut. So this one I did in some darker colors. I used shaded spruce and garden green, a little bit of old olive in that as well. And so look at, you can just see how we've really got kind of light, medium, and a darker version of that same, and it totally creates a different image, a different look, right, for each one. And then of course I wanted to show you a finished card and what this could look like. So you could take this that we started with, stamp it down, and layer it up. Add a little bit of splatter. You know I love splatter. There's a bit of Wink Stella on there, a little bit of linen thread and some embellishments, and you don't even need a sentiment on the front. It is just beautiful as is, right? Then I did put a sentiment inside, so this will be a birthday card, birthday wishes for a day as great as you are, which is a lovely sentiment in this set. But doesn't that just create the most beautiful, look like you hand painted all of those beautiful trees. So happy Technique Tuesday, and I will be back soon for some other variations and new techniques to share with you. I hope you have an awesome week, and any of these things you can find in my online store. You can also find the replay of this Technique Tuesday or any of our priors on my blog at stampinqueenbee.com. And again, this is that Frosted Forest bundle. I love it. I think it is just such a beautiful set. So have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you soon.